I'm Leon Todd for G66. Welcome to another Tuesday Tone Tip. On today's video, I want to show you a multi-band distortion and fuzz preset that I've put together, and I also want to offer you up a template and a walkthrough of how I achieve this preset. Really quickly, I want to give you an example of what I'm talking about here. I've split the guitar into 6 different bands. There's a bunch of different distortions and pitch effects on here. It sounds totally wild, and it is a great example of something that the Axe-Fx 3 can do that nearly nothing else on the planet can. Check it out. Let's start by breaking down a simplified version of that preset, and I will share this as a template that you can use to craft your own multi-band distortion presets. The core idea here is to split our guitar signal up into 6 different frequency bands, and the way I've done that is I've used a combination of filter and parametric EQ blocks. So the first filter block here is low passing the raw guitar signal. Everything below 200 Hertz is being preserved. So this is going to be like the extreme low end of the guitar. Then we've got a parametric EQ, which is letting us select the band between 200 and 400 Hertz. We've got 400 and 800 Hertz selected in here, 800 and 1600 Hertz, 1600 and 3200 Hertz. You can see the pattern here, and then everything above 3200 Hertz. Now, each of these bands gets run through their own set of processing. So the low end goes through a compressor. There's no distortion there. I've chosen a hard fuzz for the first part of the distorted low end. We could call this one maybe the low mids. They're going through a compulsion distortion. The mid-mids are going through a pi fuzz. The high mids are going through a phase fuzz. And the extreme high end is actually going through this Cameron CCV 2D amp model with the power amp modeling off. So it's only the preamp section. Now, all of that is being fed into a mixer so that you can set the amount of each band's relative mix to one another really easily. I've even mapped all of these controls onto the perform page. So if you want to do this on the front panel of the unit, that makes it really, really easy. I've also set the level and drive for a bunch of the different bands in there onto the perform page. So that's a nifty little thing on there if you like to work on the hardware. The whole idea here is that is just a distorted guitar sound. There's like a really fancy distortion pedal. I'm running that to a clean amp. This is the Band Commander model. I'm just using a factory cab 4x12 Recto 57MC. I've got some multi-band compression on here to control the extreme low end and some reverb. So you can add blocks in here to taste. You can even add different blocks into these as well. What I want to do though is break down what each band is contributing to the overall sound. So let's start with the extreme high end. The way I'm doing this is I've set the bypass mode of the filters and the parametric EQs to mute, as you can see there. So let's have a listen to what the extreme high end is doing. You may not even be able to hear this. I'm going to bring up row 6 gain for you all, and then I'll bring it back down. This is going to sound pretty horrible. So I think of that high band as just a little bit of crust on top of everything else. Let's hear the next band between 1600 and 3200 Hertz. On its own, sounds a little bit muffled and a little bit thin. The main players are coming in with these next couple of bands here. So this is everything between 800 and 1600 Hertz. This is running through the pi fuzz. So this is going to be super filthy. Next, we've got the 400 to 800 band. I'm running this through the compulsion distortion for kind of like a rocky Marshall style distortion. distorted low end is being run through the hard fuzz. This is a really good aggressive fuzz. I'm not sure what this is based on in the real world, if it's based on anything at all, but it is a great sounding fuzz on its own. Then the extreme low end, this is going to sound absolutely awful on its own, but it's essentially just adding some rumble and some kind of body to the overall tone. I'm just running this through a compressor. Next, I'll bring in each band one by one. Now, I would strongly encourage you to experiment with the types of drive and amp in here, as well as the overall level between all of them with the mixer. For example, let's change all of these to channel B. I've got a phase fuzz for the extreme low end, and then an FAS LED drive. Then I've got the Bender fuzz instead of the Pi fuzz. And over here, I've got the Sir Riot. I could also choose something like this Euro Uber amp model on here, and I could bring up the high end, I could bring down some of this band in here, kind of like use this essentially like an EQ, where I can maybe boost the extreme highs, scoop out some mids. I'm gonna get a totally different character again. Now, I don't know how you feel about that particular sound. You might think it's the most gloriously nasty thing you've ever heard, or you might just think it sounds absolutely terrible and you would have no use for this. Even so, you could substitute the drive blocks for different EQ blocks or different modulation effects or pitch bass effects and really come up with some creative presets in here that you would not be able to do with a traditional rig. You're really starting to use some of the power of the Axe-Fx 3. I'll show you the patch now that I played right at the beginning of the video. What I've done with this patch is essentially take that template and add some pitch-based effects in there. So on the clean signal, I'm using a ring modulator with pitch tracking on and the frequency multiplier set to 1/2. So that gives me a low octave on that super clean low end. Then I'm using a pitch block in here with some creative routing where this parametric EQ is panned left. This one is panned right. This is set to stereo. So voice 1 and voice 2 are both up an octave, but they're slightly detuned. And then for the extreme high end in here, I've used the octave divider to add some low octaves, like reverse harmonics, if you like. Same amps and drives as before. I've got a phaser, a chorus, and a delay in here if I want them. So I'm gonna play you all out with this patch again. I will post these up on Axchange for you all to try. Let me know how you like them. Put any comments or requests in the comment section below, and I'll see you all next week for another Tuesday Tone Tip. Thanks for watching.